93.9 FM.
Nothing like a smooth transition into the midday. Be sure to tune to The Shift Monday to Friday at 12:30 p.m. with Joinae Gibson on Glory 93.9 FM. The freshest wave of glory to hit the Bahamas.
It's an amazing day here at Glory 93.9 FM. It's 12:30, so you know exactly what that means. You are tuned in and, of course, always locked and loaded on The Shift with yours truly. I'm so excited to be in your company today. Man, listen, every time I feel like I have my camera right off air, when we come on air, it's just something that stresses me out. Mr. Producer, do I look all right to you? All right, thank you. Listen, y'all don't judge me. I'm just a girl, all right? I'm just a girl. But thank you for keeping it locked and loaded always to Glory 93.9 FM. Thank you for choosing, whether you are listening on radio, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or worldwide listener. I want to say welcome to The Shift. I'm going to start by saying this. Every relationship teaches us something, sometimes about love, and sometimes it teaches us something or some things about ourselves. I want you to think about it for just a moment and just really picture this. Have you ever been in a relationship where, you wanted it to work? You were doing everything just to make it work, but it just was something you didn't know how to make it better, so to speak. Maybe you found yourself asking questions like, why do we keep having the same arguments? Why do we keep having the same problems? Why do I keep starting relationships so good and they're ending so painfully? The truth of the matter is, relationships can be one of the most beautiful parts of life. I promise you. But they can also be some of the most challenging parts of life. Studies have shown that communication struggles, unresolved emotional patterns, and unmet expectations are among the biggest reasons relationships break down. You know what that is? And many times people aren't lacking love. They're not lacking quote unquote intimacy, but they are lacking the tools that make love work. Even from a biblical perspective, in Genesis 2:18, God says, it's not good for man to be alone. And that reminds us that we're not created to be, by ourselves, but we're created for a companionship, created for a partnership and community. But like anything meaningful, anything worth having, relationships require understanding, patience, and growth. So whether you are dating, married, divorced, healing from a breakup, or just trying to understand yourself better, conversations like today matter, I promise you, because we want to understand how we can navigate these relationships. I have a quote here that says, have enough courage to trust love one more time and always one more time. Now, if you are in today's society, we don't believe one more time. Well, but this quote says, have courage enough to trust love one more time and always one more time. Shifters, it's time to lock in. Whether you are and I see y'all already texting me. Whether you're in your car, whether you're watching on Facebook, rewatching this broadcast. Hey, Nashonda. Hey, Daniel. Glad to see you. Shifters will lock in. Oh, Lord Jesus, anonymous text already get me. All right. So please be sure to like and share the show. Type in the comment section. Tag someone in the comment section every day, Monday through Friday. We are locked and loaded on your favorite station with your favorite person. Don't forget, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is at Joinae Gibson on all platforms. And of course, Glory 93.9 FM. Now, I need you to jump into the comment section with the nice shifters to let me know that you are here with me. And of course, every day I do this. I have to thank the shifters community. Every day, you guys are locked in with me, from the texting, from the calling, before show, during show, after show, when you see me anywhere. I am so grateful for your unwavering, undying support. And I promise you, the shifters would be nothing without you. And I am eternally grateful for your support. So with that being said, let's move right into today's show. Right now, our guest today, for those who are tuned in on my social media platforms, you would know that our guest today is Harrison Thompson, a passionate therapist and relationship consultant who specializes in helping people navigate the complexities of relationship. Fancy. You got to see it. Born and raised right here in the Bahamas, Harrison is a cognitive behavioral therapist who has been counseling singles and couples for over a decade. So, we're dealing with a veteran, so to speak, right? He is widely recognized for his viral videos on relationships, dating, and personal growth, which earned him the Bahamian Icon Award as the People's Choice Icon of the Year. Y'all need to see the eyebrows going up like, yes, this is accurate, right? When he's not helping others to strengthen their relationship, he enjoys traveling, vlogging, and celebrating life with his family. Man, listen, shifters, I am so pleased to welcome to the shift, Harrison Thompson. I gotta get all my sounds correct. Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson, and how are you?
I am good, man. Any day that I got life, any day that I got breath in my body is an opportunity that I could be thankful, I could be grateful, and I can continue in on the service.
Well, I love that. And I'm so happy to have you join me today on the shift. And I know I had, quite a lengthy introduction, right? But I want you to tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself. We want to know everything, as much as you can share with our listening audience. Who is Harrison Thompson?
At about 90% of the time when I'm not doing therapy, I am enjoying food, man. I love food. I love working out. I'm a science nerd. A lot of people don't know that. If you left it up to me, I would still buy textbooks to this day. Read through the units and do the questions in the back. I don't know. It's just something about it. My favorite movie of all time is Interstellar. I've always felt in awe whenever I look up into the sky. And the more I look up into the sky, the more it humbles me to recognize what kind of creator we have.
Wow.
What kind of creation we are. So, I tap into that. That's what feeds me outside of therapy.
Wow, I love that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You need to add that to your bio.
I think
you
so.
You need to tell that needs to be noised abroad. all of those details. And like I said, I'm excited for today's conversation. Right. So today's topic is relationships 101, connections, communications, and boundaries. Now, we've had a run-in our recent acquaintance.
That's right.
About this word, boundaries. And we're going to get into that in a few. But I want to start by asking, a lot of people find themselves in unhealthy relationships and they stay. Why do you think people stay? And how can someone recognize when it's time to break free from that cycle in that relationship?
Yeah, I think it's always easy for outsiders to look at a person's relational situation and give disconnected commentary. If it was me in that situation, child, I wasn't putting up with that. And it's always commentary by outsiders. Why? Because you're not in that relationship. You don't have time invested in that relationship. You don't have experiences with that person. Nobody gets into a relationship thinking about how it will end. So when you actually come to that crossroads and you have to decide, that's a multi-layered decision. It's time invested. It's what I thought this would be. It was the potential of the situation, but it's also the reality of how a person has changed. It's also the reality of what is this doing to my mental and emotional health. Is this helping me in my walk? Is this hindering me in my walk? And it's not always easy for people to isolate themselves from society enough to understand what I need to be doing in a given situation. And so I've learned to give grace to people. It's easy to just look at a person's situation and say, what would I do if that was me? But you got to understand it isn't you. It's a whole other person with a
Right.
whole other set of experiences, with a whole other set of, family brought up. See, and it's like, it's never a simple thing to just tell a person to leave. I think what we need to focus on, though, if we are at that crossroads, is this relationship helping me to be the person that I need to be, or is it hindering me? And if people are honest, relationships many times become a kind of burden because we don't know how to set the right kind of boundaries. We don't know how to be honest without fear of hurting people's feelings. And we're always considering what is the outcome more than what we're considering as our experience. And when you consider outcomes more than your experiences, you end up suffering in silence and calling it patience. And so you have to make sure that as an individual in a relationship that you tap in with yourself, that you do inventory with yourself, to make sure that at any given time, if you had to be asked a question, do you have peace? Are you happy right now? Are you feeling good about where you're heading and what's going on? You should be able to answer that with confidence.
Wow, you said something, and I had to write that down. Considering the outcome more than the experience, what role does our upbringing even play in that decision making? Whether we're accustomed to think about the outcome rather than how we are feeling or what we're experiencing in that moment.
I think a lot of Bahamian people have grown up in a culture where we were taught what we had to be before we were ever given permission to consider ourselves. From you wake up in the morning, there's an agenda waiting on you. Before you even had the time to sit down with yourself, there's already things that you have to do. Speaking as a pastor's kid of a pastor's kid, there's this religious sometimes obligation to doing what you're supposed to do before you ever tap in with yourself, right? And sometimes we get so good at serving people on their needs, we forget to put eyes on our needs too. And I feel like that becomes a conundrum for people in relationships because we're so good at serving the need of others, but we're not so equipped to serve the need within ourselves. And certain needs that we often neglect is that we need to express things. We need to communicate things. We have a right to be upset about things that happen to us. We have a right to be concerned about unfairness. And you're not a complainer just because you're bringing that up. You are being honest with your experience. And if anybody ever makes you feel like you don't have permission to be honest about your experience, you have to reevaluate what that relationship is for you.
How does one really get out of that sort of mentality? Because we wake up, we have this agenda,
Right.
and if you go against this agenda, all hell breaks loose, right? But how does one break free from that sort of routine or practice?
If I could, in a perfect world, where we all get what we need as children from our parents. Parents are supposed to love us as we are. They give value to who we are as enough, as worthy. And so if we grow up with that ample love and affection, it empowers us to walk away from anything that doesn't reflect that we are worthy. It allows us to walk away from things that's asking us to become things that we're not, without fear of what we'll be missing out on. But this isn't a perfect world. We don't all grow up with the things that we need, and so many times we are afraid of what's going to happen when I leave. Are you still going to see me as a good person? Are you still going to think about me in the right way? And these are tangible concerns for people who don't truly know themselves. And so the single best insurance policy for making sure that you understand seasons come and go is knowledge of self. Getting into a relationship when you don't have adequate knowledge of yourself means that you might be driven to do things because of your circumstances and surroundings
Wow.
instead of being driven because of your knowledge of who you are and who you are not.
Wow, you said a lot, but one thing I really want to hone in on is that fear of being alone, that fear of being judged. How dangerous, if I could describe it that way, is fear in relationships and from all aspects. I'm thinking friendship, I'm thinking marriage, I'm thinking, even in the community. How much does fear play a role in people remaining in circumstances or relationships that are not good for them?
Yeah, I think it's a very human thing to want to fit in. And you look at the degrees in which people will do things and say things and become things just to be a part, of the community, right? From little boys who want to be a part of a community and get exploited by gangs in their particular
Wow.
environments, to people who are longing for love and being exploited by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, having to qualify for things based on what you do for me, how you make me feel. Human beings have demonstrated that for the sake of fitting in, for the sake of being a part of a community, I am willing to do what is necessary to join. Whether it's a Greek lettered organization and having to go through a process, or it's trying out for a football team and seeing if your name makes the list, submitting your request to be a part of the praise team. It's like we want to fit in, we want to be a part of things, and so we can't ever minimize that human drive to want to be a part of things. It's a reflection of how we are created as social creatures. And anybody who tries to convince themselves that they don't need people, they don't need community, you're kind of lying to yourself, man, you know? So it's a very real fear. And when we get pushed away from that, you feel the friction of no longer having connection. We call it ostracizing. We call it being left out. It feels terrible when you're the person who's not invited, when you're the person left out of the WhatsApp group chat, when everybody else got asked a question, but they assumed, oh, well, you never come, so we ain't going to ask you anyway.
Wow.
Those micro rejections, that hurts. And we would do a lot of stuff to avoid that.
You're saying so much, right? But I want to piggyback. We talked about the fear of being alone, and we talked about how, childhood experiences, or how if we were in a perfect quote unquote world. I want to pivot a bit. And what advice would you give to parents to foster environments for their children to discover themselves, or to be okay with, not wanting or not having to be a part, quote unquote, or just being accepted, or even just going on what they believe or what they feel deep within? What advice would you give to parents in that regard?
Parents don't get to choose the type of child that they have. Parents have to be willing to become the parent the child needs. So you think about how we idealize and romanticize the idea of having kids. Everybody wants a little me. And they start imagining, them following in their footsteps, the temperament of their child being a certain way.
Oh, wow. That's
And
good.
that child doesn't come out like how we want them to come out. Oh, what the spirit is on my child. Oh, what wrong? We got to bind the spirit up. We got to bind the
Get the
spirit
oil.
up of
Get the oil.
introversion. And it's like deciding that you want to have kids is all you have authority over.
Jesus.
That pool of what kind of child you may potentially have ranges from autism, Down syndrome, metabolic issues, down to the behavioral issues, down to the things we can't see, like predisposition to
Jesus.
alcoholism, predispositions to unforgiveness. So just saying that you want to have a child, first off, is recognizing that as a parent, we have to be flexible enough. We have to be hungry for the right kind of information to become what our child needs. And sometimes what your child needs requires you to become someone you're not always wanting to become, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is we have to create a space and environment where our children see that they don't have to qualify for love.
Oh, man.
A lot of parents withhold love until their child becomes what the parent wants the child to be.
You're saying something. Oh,
So-
man.
And that kind of conditional love makes this child feel like, boy, if I had to fight for this in my home from the people who gave me life, what more will the world want from me? And so parents can't ever take for granted or minimize the role that they play in the overall mental health, emotional health, and relational health of their children. And we got to stop taking this thing for jokes.
Wow. I couldn't agree more. I want to really unpack because when I think about, as a parent, having to change, I'm going to use change for lack of a better word, change who I am to become this parent for my child just based on what he or she needs. What if I'm still dealing with me? What if I haven't discovered me. And maybe someone listening today may say, you know something, Harrison, I hear you. I know that I need to be a different person for my child or for my children, but I can't seem to get over what my parents did to me and what their parents did to them. And I harbor unforgiveness and I don't know how to be loved, yet alone give love. What would you say to that person?
We know that perfection is not attainable. And we know that it's a rare thing to be perfectly ready before you move into a relationship or before you decide to have a child. But what is non-negotiable is honesty. If you're not at a place where you want to be, you have to be honest about where you are so you can be accountable to what you have to do. Okay? So it's okay if you didn't come from a loving home, but you got to be honest about that so you can be accountable to the things you have to do.
Agreed.
To number one, break that generational curse. And number two, to create a different experience for your child that you didn't have. And for some people, that's forever going to be a disciplinary thing. Like a lot of people wait for the feeling to show up, but it just never shows up. And so for some parents, that's purely a disciplinary thing. For others, we like to hope that we have dormant maternal energies or dormant paternal energies that'll just activate when the child arrives.
That's what we've been told.
But after year 1, year 2, year 3, you realize, boy, it ain't showing up.
It's not kicking in.
Like this parenthood is fighting with my singlehood. And I want to bag. And I looking at the formula this child needs. And I looking at the trips I want to go on. And it's like for some parents, you have to get used to the management of what it means to create an environment versus waiting on that emotional, organic development of a feeling before you can start creating something. And so if you're not where you need to be, fine, we give grace. But we cannot give grace to you if you're not being accountable to what you know you need to do. That's inexcusable.
Wow. And I'm sure someone is listening today. And of course, if you have your questions, you can text the text line today. The text line is 242-817-2544. Once again, 242-817-2544. Of course, if you're okay with not being anonymous, you can type in the comment section. Please, could you make your questions short so that I don't have to read a whole paragraph, Harrison? Please, y'all do that for me today. And of course, thank you for all those tuned in via Glory 93.9 FM. I have the one and only Harrison Thompson, relationship specialist, in studio with me, and we're just going to unpack. And if you are tuning in on Facebook or on YouTube, you would see today's topic: connections, communication, and boundaries. And we're going to go right into communication. You are an avid poster on Facebook.
That's right.
I love it. I live for it. I promise you. Let's talk about the level of communication that one needs in every relationship. Let's talk about what communication is, what that looks like, and how may someone recognize I'm not a good communicator. It doesn't work for me.
Okay. So the average person defines communication as simply being able to say something clearly and honestly, right? But in my line of work, that's called talking. Communication isn't communication until what you're saying has been received by the audience you're speaking to. So communication is about first understanding what you need to say. And then number two, taking on the burden of changing how I say it, changing where I say it, or what it needs to be said so that it can be received. Until something is received, you have made an attempt at communication. Communication is not something that you achieve just because you said something or just because you were clear about something. That just simply means you were heard. But understanding, that has to be something you choose to be inconvenienced by if you want to get your message across. Now, a lot of us don't care about that. A lot of us are just outside making statements.
We lost half of our audience just now.
Listen, I felt it. I felt the shift. Right? And it's like, yeah, you think about a teacher in a classroom.
You're right.
The teacher is the one that possesses the knowledge. It's the students that are supposed to be looking for that knowledge. A teacher teaches it one way, but what happens when every student doesn't understand? It is the teacher's duty and burden to remix that lesson, to reframe that lesson in a way that the students can grasp it. And only once the students grasp it can we now say that we have successfully achieved communication. So it's a work. it's work to communicate, right? It's work and energy, and a lot of people don't have that energy, which is why we get very combative when we speak. It's why we become condescending when we speak, because we just don't want to put in the work to make sure that people understand. You know?
You're absolutely right. And I'm really just picturing that classroom. If I have a classroom of, let's say, 20, 25 students,
Yeah.
and 21 of them understood what I said clearly, we tend to take on the thought process of, well, majority got it, so I don't need to really go after the four or go after the few that didn't get it. What about that person that says, well, this is just the way that I speak. This is just the way that I communicate. You don't, everyone else understands it, but you don't. And that quote unquote mentality affects friendships. It affects marriages. It affects homes. It affects communities. Might I say the world? What would you say to that person? Because, you know, I'm thinking about or visualizing really your analogy, but second nature says, listen, if majority got it, I did it.
Yeah. You know, as you're saying that, I'm visualizing in my mind, if 21 out of 25 students get it, what wrong with y'all said? The disposition is not to shift into how can I help you get it. The disposition is to shift into, well, what's wrong with you because everybody else got it. And how often have we been on the receiving end of what's wrong with us because we didn't get it? And it's like, no, I just didn't understand it. Why am I being punished for not understanding? And so to give grace to that kind of situation, I like to say that there's no such thing as a simple problem between two people. Even if you think it's simple, like 1 + 1 is 2, or the difference between day and night is the sun being up versus the sun being down, the more simple we think things are, the more likely we are to engage in condescension when people don't get it.
Ooh.
So to preempt that, to get ahead of that problem, we have to understand that there's no such thing as simplicity. And what that will reveal in a person if they do that is their biases. Biases where they feel like they don't have to explain things, or biases where they feel like people
Holy
should know
Ghost.
things by now.
What is this today?
And you'll know that you are engaging with your bias when you're using the word should. Because should is a reflection of idealism. This road should be paved. You should have gotten this by now.
Heavy on the road should be paved. Holy
Listen,
Ghost.
You understand it, girl? This
we
a
can
thing.
relate.
This a thing. And so we see that communication is multifaceted, and for that reason, it takes a
Indeed
lot
it
of
is.
energy. And if people are not listening, it does not make sense to communicate. It costs that much energy that you can't waste it on deaf ears. So you also have to be discerning to who you really decide to communicate to. You have to understand the environment you're in. Some people have already made decisions to close the door on what they're hearing. And
true.
you got to understand those doors only open from the inside. They don't open from the outside. They don't open because of your convincing. They don't open because of your clarity. They open because people are willing to hear.
Wow.
And so, in a relationship sense, we have to always kind of nurture that spirit of being willing to hear. Even when we don't agree, I have to be willing to listen. Even if I can't see what you see, I have to be willing to receive your experience as legit and valid to prime the environment for communication to take place in.
I think that would require a lot of maturity, and
Yeah, it's hard.
it's hard because I'm thinking generally the average person, they're not gonna go through quote unquote all of that stress.
Oh, no.
Lord Anonymous text, Lord Jesus for the sister D. they love it, but the average is we're not going through all of that.
Yeah.
It sounds tedious, especially if we look at the breakdown in friendships, the breakdown in marriages, the breakdown in church. It all boils down to communication. And when we lack that maturity, when we lack that discernment, when we lack that grace, when we lack those attributes, it costs something.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going somewhere with this. Let's talk boundaries, right?
Get it?
Right? Now, why are boundaries? If y'all know the story with me and boundaries with Mr. Thompson, y'all would understand exactly why I'm smiling for this because we went in the other day on this same topic, boundaries. So let's talk boundaries.
Yes.
Why are boundaries so important in relationships, and how can someone set them without feeling guilty?
Yes. Boundaries are so important for no other reason than because we are different. If we were all born of the same mentality, with the same predispositions, the same outlooks on life, we wouldn't need boundaries because everybody thinks the same, everybody feels the same. So, to make sure that relationships honor our differences, we have to have boundaries and understanding that we have different capacities, that we have different viewpoints of the world, that we have different tolerances for things, that we have different strengths. And it's not those differences that's the problem. It's when we don't know how to accept differences as okay as that's the problem. And the only way we can communicate to someone who is different than us that it's okay for me to be me is with a boundary. And what we will see that when we respect boundaries, we can both have a safe space where we can be different but be together. Where we don't have to be alike to be for the same cause. And it's a beautiful thing when we can understand it.
Mr. Thompson, please piggyback. Say that again. We don't have to be alike.
To be together.
Could you unpack that just a little further for our listening audience?
Yeah, God and His infinite wisdom and intelligence has given us all unique expressions of His glory. And we don't want to ever
Lord,
think...
we need the ushers. Ushers, please. Lord, what is you preaching?
That's literally 8 billion different expressions of the same beautiful God. So we don't ever want to condemn differences as a problem, and we were all beautifully and fearfully made. But we have to understand that we have a human tendency to reject things that don't look like me, that don't sound like me, that don't work in the way that I work. And sometimes that's a learned behavior, generationally, where we love to reject things that don't look like what I'm used to. And we love to condemn things that don't sound like what I'm used to it sounding like. But boundaries are about holding equal space for differences to be seen, heard, and understood with intention. Not just tolerated, but with intention. So that we can see that we are all valuable here, even when we don't agree. And you need that if you want to get along with someone who's different than you. Okay, I'm man and my wife is woman. And as long as I am man and she is woman, we will see things differently. We have different feelings. She's predisposed to certain things. I'm predisposed to certain things. I don't want to ever think that because she doesn't think the way that I think, that somehow she's wrong. And so we need boundaries to ensure that we can both be protected in this space while being for the same goal.
Wow. I have an anonymous texter here who says, Joinae, today's conversation is so needed. I have a question. I am struggling with communication with my spouse simply because, and I guess I can say the gender, that's okay, right? Simply because he is different than I am. Every time I have an opinion, every time I have a thought that I want to share, there is always tension or some kind of breakdown. Mind you, I know he loves me and I love him, but anytime it comes to explaining something or voicing something is when things go left. How do I navigate this?
Yeah, so it's a common thing that happens between men and women. We cannot ignore the fact that we exist in a patriarchal society. Patriarchal meaning that a lot of the systems we live in were created by men, which means a lot of those systems have biases for male-centered love or male-centered affection or male-centered things. We know now that that is not always good, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be willing to reframe that structure, right? And for a lot of men, they're not used to hearing feedback. They're not used to hearing criticisms. Because I watch my granddaddy, he speak and that's law. I watch my Grammy, she listen. I watch my father, I watch my mother.
That's right.
But this ain't our generation. And we don't want to be so fickle that we can't receive feedback and criticisms on what it is we think is right. And if we don't learn that discomfort isn't negative, we will always make the uncomfortable feeling of having those kind of conversations out to be negativity when it's not. And my word out there to men is you don't want to ever disenfranchise your woman. simply because you don't know how to hold space for uncomfortable conversation. You'll find that most men don't know how to see beyond that,
Right.
and they'll start to create labels like, "Well, this woman doing too much. She's too emotional," and it's like she's not. She's a woman, and as a man who's taking that woman on as her head, or is that man who's taking that woman on under her leadership so that he can be a head, it is your duty to make sure that those under your care have an environment and a space to flourish. And once we can get over biases, once we can get over those predispositions that things are fixed and they should be a certain way, we can start becoming more inconvenienced by what people need to be more aligned on the same things. And I've observed whenever I give my wife the space to have her feelings without judgment, when I show her that I will always take seriously whatever she says, whether I understand it or not, she always leans into my direction. She always clings to my logic because I've given her what it is she needs to be okay. She now gives me what it is I need to be okay. So
Wow.
that sounds like it could be a pattern of history, where that couple in particular has had a history of how they've interacted with problems and how they solve problems. Sometimes it can be a hard thing to change all of that, but if there's love there, if there's consideration for each other there, that's not a permanent problem. That should end that relationship.
You said something when you gave the analogy with your wife, how she automatically leans in that direction when you give that space. I love that because it sort of feels like this is just me thinking out loud. It sort of feels like a manipulation tactic in a way. Like
Yeah.
I let you do what you want to do, but if you were different, if you were to say, well, this is what I believe in, this is what you should do, she would automatically go in the opposite direction. So I think it's maybe not manipulation. I want to say strategy.
Yeah, it is strategy.
Wisdom.
It is strategy.
Wisdom, right? But so certain tactics we know to do with our spouses. And I want to even take it into relationships, friendships, that is. How do, whether we like to address it or not, especially with female friendships, they get messy. They get very dirty, and the respect, the boundaries, the privacy, it's, especially in this generation, it's gone. What would you say to someone who is trying to build healthy friendships in their lives? Like, they want that person to be there with them. They want to be there for that person. But for some strange reason, this same thing keeps reoccurring.
Yeah.
What would you say to that? I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
History is not often enough to make a determination on whether you should continue in a relationship. And I only say that because people change. And some people change for the worse. And what happens when we love the potential more than what the reality is permitting? Well, that could become a problem because now you see things that the other person doesn't see. You might become the source of change alone, which doesn't necessarily bode well for a relational where this is supposed to be equal effort and change, And I think a lot of times we grieve that. Or I should say we don't know how to grieve that. And so we cling to just this blind hope that tomorrow is going to be better than today, but we have no tangible evidence that it will be, because we're not seeing any accountability and ownership to our contribution to the problem and to the strain. And so what happens in those situations, it often makes more sense to just leave as opposed to giving your valuable resources of time, energy, and effort to a situation where it's a one-player game. I don't want to be the only one rowing in the boat. I don't want to be the only person contributing. I don't want to be the only person calling and checking in. You have to be honest about those things with boundaries to recognize that though I desire more out of this relationship, my desire is not the authority here.
Wow.
There's accountability and ownership over the problem that green lights whether we should work on this or not.
Wow. We're talking about boundaries, and if you're just tuned in, this is The Shift, and I am here with this amazing guest, Mr. Harrison Thompson, relationship guru. I given him all kind of names. I promise you. Every time I have something else added on that. But if you have a question, a comment, or a concern, I want you to text the text line today. It's 242-817-2544. Now I see most of you just commenting, and I see your text. So of course, when you send a question, I will get to it as soon as possible. Now, we're talking about boundaries. We're talking about connections. But But let's deal with the elephant in the room. Most relationships, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but most relationships, where, in every area, I can say almost every area, deals with a level of unforgiveness, right?
Yeah.
And I stand to be corrected, but just based on, my limited observation, right? Most persons, or okay, maybe a little less than most persons, especially, okay, I'll tell you why, especially in the church, deal with unforgiveness in relationships. How do we navigate that? What does that take for us to truly let go, move on, don't repeat the pattern, and strengthen the new relationships that come in our lives? And I want to give you an example. Let's say someone was betrayed by a friend, right? And, it's really bad. Boom, boom, boom. They cut that person off. They quote unquote set that boundary. But everyone that comes to be a friend to that person from now on gets the quote unquote bad end of the stick. Dealing with that unforgiveness, dealing with that resentment, and navigating Christianity.
So we have to understand first off that forgiveness isn't necessarily a principle that works to soothe feelings. Forgiveness is a principle that is designed to preserve our soul. Now, if you make forgiveness about feelings, you'll never forgive. And the reason why you'll never forgive is because
Mr. Thompson, you have to slow down. You have to slow down because say it again for the people in the back. I think someone behind us didn't catch that. Just one more time, please.
Yeah, forgiveness is a principle that is designed to preserve your soul. It is not necessarily designed to soothe your feelings. And when you make forgiveness something that is supposed to soothe your feelings, you'll never want to forgive. And the reason why you'll never want to forgive is because of your memory, meaning you'll never forget. And when you remember what they've done, when it's that calendar date again, when they reach for their phone, when you are watching a movie, and you're reminded of certain things, it's hard to not feel and go through that emotionally. Now, the experience of that doesn't mean you haven't forgiven. The experience of that simply means you're a human being. And human beings need to understand that the point of forgiveness is not the point of me never feeling this again. The point of forgiveness is just my shift now in terms of how I choose to respond to what I cannot change. Now, here comes the possibility of reconciliation. Forgiveness doesn't immediately mean that I want to get back into relationship. Forgiveness doesn't mean a readiness to be back in the presence of the person who had hurt me. And a lot of times we conflate the two. We think that because I have forgiven, that means I'm ready to be lovey-dovey now. That means we're ready to be boys again or girls again, and that's not true. Reconciliation is the willingness to take a risk and seeing if there's something here that we can rebuild. That's going out again. That's investing again. That's seeing what could happen again. And not everybody is able to get to reconciliation. For some people, it's one and done. I have forgiven you, but in forgiving you, that doesn't mean that I want a relationship with you. And we have to understand that some people are wired in such a way where because of what they have endured, because of what they have experienced, there's no way they can go back to that situation and be the same again.
Wow.
And we got to learn to honor and respect that. This is why we have to take seriously what we have. We love to look at just these moments where I want to cheat, I want to get my need met. And we're not seeing it in the full scheme of what this could possibly mean for the bigger picture. And because we're so isolated from the bigger picture, many times we feel inclined to want to do things because all I'm seeing is my feelings and my experience. But it's a lot of recovery work to first forgive and then to reconcile. And a lot of people don't have the capacity to really see that through. We really diminish what it takes to forgive, to reconcile, and then to take a risk in choosing to believe that we can grow from that. So that's one of those things, Joinae.
Oh, man.
It's tough.
It is tough. And, even listening to you break that down, there's so many hidden parts in there because there is that, and this is my thought process. Well, I forgive. I am not willing to go there with you again.
Right.
but it creates the image that I haven't forgiven.
Yeah, always. It's always the people who think that if you have forgiven, you should look a certain way. You should
Open
be open
arms.
arms, right?
Open
Like,
arms.
you think about, we talked about roads earlier needing to be paved, right? You got certain popular holes and ditches that we know because we drive that route enough. If I forgot where that hole was, what kind of damage is my car going to take
Oh
on,
my God.
right? I have to remember where that hole was to avoid hitting it again. Sometimes ditches are so deep, so cavernous, I can't even go that route anymore. And a lot of people aren't willing to look at that issue. They're not willing to give resources so that issue could be fixed. And they're not willing to maintain
Wow.
the thing even after they've applied the resources. Because you can't just one and done it. You can't just set it and forget it. You can't just say, let's move on. That hurt now becomes a part of your future. And if you don't learn to create new considerations for what that hurt has done to that person and for what you have to be to cover that hurt, moving forward is a mirage.
Wow.
Moving forward is a very selfish view over something that doesn't include another person who has been changed because of that hurt. And a lot of us are not willing to give, not give, sorry, not a lot of people are willing to grieve the old relationship in face of the new one.
Wow.
Because the new relationship requires new things. I don't get to just go anymore without communication. I don't get to just reach for my phone anymore without that person wondering. And a lot of us aren't sensitive to what that is. So again, we dismiss it. We put that on the victim. See, you freaking out. You need to relax. You look like you interested in being hurt all the time. I trying to move on, and it's like,
You're dealing with trauma.
yeah,
They
don't-
already name you. Wow.
if you have hurt someone, do not be haughty in making this all about the victim. That victim lived that. And in living that, that has changed them. That has changed them emotionally, how they feel. It's changed them mentally, how they think. It's even changed them physically and what they go through in their body. And if you're not willing to see that full experience, you may no longer be a safe space for that person to take risk in love anymore.
Wow. Do you think it's possible? Because, and I say this every time you're done, but you're saying so much, and I know we don't have enough time to unpack everything. But do you think it's possible to be hurt in an environment and healed in that same environment? Is that real?
Hurt, yes. Harmed, not always the case.
Help me with the difference.
Yes. Hurt is just not getting our way.
Okay.
Hurt is when we don't get our preferences met. So I could go to buy some food and I'm anticipating that food and they tell me they ran out, I get hurt. My wife may tell me something that hurts my feelings. Harrison, your breath smell bad. That hurts. That don't mean I'm leaving my wife.
Okay.
Okay? I cooked a dish out of love in my heart and she tells me, baby, this ain't it. I got hurt. That doesn't mean I'm leaving my wife though. Harm is different. Harm is a violation. Harm is when we disrupt a person's ability to feel totally safe. Harm is when we disrupt a person's ability to connect with the love we say we have. So this includes verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, gaslighting, manipulation, dealing with narcissism, all of these kind of things. These have the power to literally shift a person's disposition. And it is near impossible to go back to the very same place where I was harmed, and to thrive. Okay? And so we got to be very careful about gaslighting people and guilting people into going back into those same spaces where the trauma occurred, because all that's going to do is cause that person to become a worse version of themselves because of, number one, what they have to perform on. I have to pretend like I'm good when I'm not, because I'm not going to get support for my truth. Number two, I'm going to be punished if I stand in my truth as being the one with the problem because I don't know how to relax and let it go. When truth be told, no one is choosing to see my trauma for what it was and for what it did to me and as to why I cannot be in the same space. So I understand that person who can't come to the family dinners anymore. I understand that person who had to leave the job. I understand that person who has had to maybe adjust their lives in a way they never had intended to because trauma took place. And we got to be so cautious about pushing people back into those environments where trauma occurred, because that's never going to result in anything good for that person coming out of that. So We can heal where we were hurt, but it is impossible to heal where we were harmed.
Shifters, our time has almost come and gone. Y'all just see Mr. Thompson looking at me like, oh, well, we already opened a
Right?
whole new
I
can of
telling you.
worms, right?
I telling you.
But, you know, our time has almost come and gone, right? But before we move any further, again, the text line is open today, 242-817-2544. If you have any questions before we end today's show. Anonymous texter is really going in and saying we really need this. Now, you gave a difference between hurt and harm.
Yes.
If the abuser is calling harm hurt,
Yes.
how does, you know, it sort of ties back into what we started today's conversation with. If we know something or a relationship or an environment is toxic, why do we stay?
Yes.
Right? So I'm this is a storyline that I'm really just trying to bring all together. Hurt, harm, toxic environment. The abuser is calling the harm hurt, and the victim is battling now with, well, was I really only hurt, and I'm making it out more than I'm making it more than it is?
Yeah.
How does one navigate those psychological mind games
Yes.
that narcissists or the abusers, you know, try to, I'm trying to find the words, and I hope you understand my question, but how does one navigate those psychological mind games?
Yeah. It's manipulation of the highest order, and it's also the most insidious kind of manipulation, because this kind of communication many times is supported by family and culture. Okay, there are certain kind of problems when you stand out to talk about it and you stand out to draw attention to it, you will not be heard on that. You know?
Wow.
When you decide to speak up against, let's say, a family abuser, where everybody has taken the tone of being quiet, but you decide to speak out, you're the problem for speaking out. You're the problem for saying, I want to change the system. And many times you get kicked back where it's like, oh, you know, that's just your father. Man, you know, that's how your mommy go. Man, you know, that's just your brother. So don't
Don't kick up too much
don't
fuss.
kick up too much fuss. You're going to be punished for standing up for that, right? So hurt isn't harm, but hurt can become harm when we don't learn to receive hurts as real and legit. Okay? Like, I could literally harm my wife if I don't accept that I hurt my wife. And hurting my wife is as simple as my tone. Hurting my wife could be as simple as disrespecting her online, cracking a joke that I thought was funny, but really it hurt her, or it wasn't good. And because in my mind I think it was simple and easy, I don't feel the need to have to say sorry for that. While that's just a hurt, it can turn into harm if I don't acknowledge it as a hurt.
Right.
And see, whenever you can acknowledge hurts, it should move you into a posture of humility, a posture of understanding that that was not my intention here, and because that is what you receive from this, forgive me. I'm sorry. But we don't have this in this culture.
I know. I mean, why are we saying sorry?
Yeah, because we right there next to Jesus, right?
Baby Jesus.
Yeah, we got our throne too, so it ain't just Jesus and
Whoa.
God, it's me. And who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? Because I'm a therapist. Because I'm soft-spoken. Because I'm X, Y, Z. And it's like, you can be wrong in spite of your good intentions. And if we don't learn to humble ourselves to that reality, hurt will always turn into harm because we're not capturing it in its infancy.
Wow. Mr. Thompson, I already have persons in the comments saying we need a part 2. Right? Because there is not enough time in today's show to really unpack all of all of these topics, right? They're so vast, they're so big. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in, or well, joining us today, rather, and to all those tuned in via Glory FM for just taking the time to share with us. I know you have a very, 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 that's on me, very, very busy schedule. So we're going to wrap up today's show. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the Shifters community? Any word of encouragement or advice? And then we're going to close today's show.
Yeah, just remember that although people smile, although people look good on the outside, although they show up, they clock in and they clock out as usual, remember that people are going through things. And you never want to be so callous to think that it's just this snapshot of life. Lives go so much deeper than just what we present to the world sometimes. And be mindful in how we speak to each other. Be mindful in how we approach one another. Be mindful in what we talk about so insensitively. Because you never know what people are going through. You never know what that person who you're so used to calling the strong one is going through. You never know what that individual who you're so used to relying on is going through. I think everybody could use a little bit more care and concern from other people. And so when you walk in, whether it's the waitress bringing you food or it's the person serving you at the counter, let's just be mindful that, yeah, we feeling and going through things, but so are them. So are they. And if we can just be mindful to that and humble to that, rising tides can raise all boats together.
Ladies and gents, Shifters, you heard it from Mr. Harrison Thompson himself. Thank you for tuning into today's show. You can catch me every Monday through Friday, same time, same place, favorite station with your favorite person. Of course, to all those that tuned in on Facebook, YouTube, the Anonymous Texters, thank you so much for participating in today's show. And until next time, keep it locked and always loaded. This is Under Control by Marisha.
David dance, I will dance before you, Lord. Just like Daniel in the den, I will stay strong. So when trials and tribulations come, that's the time I will sing to you this song.